Humankind's struggle to survive on planet Earth often entails uncomfortable consequences, not the least of which involves imperiling our natural surroundings. The search for solutions entails people in many walks of life. That includes the art world, in which individuals capture images of imperiled wildlife and environments, often with a foreboding that the day will come when it is no longer possible to do so. Capturing nature on canvas has long been a pursuit of Barbara Kraemer and Suzi Hoffman of the Pine Shores Art Association in Manahawkin. Throughout May 2022, their joint exhibit, Endangered Species, engages visitors in the Ocean County Library Toms River Branch. It also reminds viewers that protecting fragile ecosystems boosts the chances of survival for the flora and fauna they contain, and also for us. There seems to be a lot of collaboration. I mean, I've been exposed to a lot of collaborative efforts through the Pine Shores Art Association. Does that take planning? Does that take a little time to sort out how we're going to do this, or what we're going to do? And do you have to take a lot of things into account, or do different people just mesh and live on the same wavelength?
I think both, don't you?
I think both. I think in the case of the libraries, that started as a cooperative effort when Christy Adalesi asked me to do a show in Pine Beach. And then we found out that all the libraries, at least I found out, I didn't know. And so we started talking to everybody in the libraries, and remember we put that one big show together at Berkeley with probably 10 or 12 artists from Pine Shore. And then from there, Suzi recommended let people do things for themselves because you'll get all the work all the time. And it started kind of branching out where we put a list together, which is published, so everybody knows who to contact.
Barbara she put it together and she just updated it. So, the artists appreciate that because Pine Shores has a couple of hundred members. And some of these people just want to take a class and they're just sort of hobbyist artists, particularly retirees, looking for some new thing and a wonderful artistic outlet and maybe something they always wanted to do. And that's just wonderful. And there's a wide variety of very valuable classes at very reasonable rates that are offered with really top quality teachers. So it's a good deal. It's a nonprofit that takes that mission seriously. But I would say about a quarter of the artists involved, and this is probably true of arts organizations everywhere, have been doing this for quite a while. They've probably always been artists, or many of them had careers in the arts, and they want to be associated with artists, but they also want exhibition opportunities and places where they can sell their art and get involved with galleries. And it's not always that easy to get involved with a gallery. So the library situation in Ocean County is wonderful that they make these display opportunities available. So you get, my friend Ray Hayworth, he just has a couple of, he's just taking the exhibit down in one of the libraries this weekend. Barnegat, okay, yeah. Because that Paul Hartilius mentioned that he went to help him take it down. Ray said to me, from COVID, he said, I've been doing nothing but painting. I have rooms full of paintings, and so need a place to display this stuff. So, there's a lot of people that do have lots of work, and then friends that get together. This particular exhibit, it was Barbara's exhibit. It's really her idea. So she said to me a couple of years ago when she started this, do you want to be in this Endangered Species show with me? I said, I really don't have a single thing to put in that, but thanks for thinking of me. And then I thought, there's a black and white show coming up. I'll do a zebra, and so I called her and I said, well, I'm going to have a zebra I can put in. And then I thought, well, I can't just put in one zebra. So I thought, what else do I want to paint? And so I started, and it just evolved like that. But also, it's a subject that I think everybody's interested in, and certainly artists who are wanting to retain the beauty of the world around them, not see it vanish away.
What triggered your particular interests in endangered species out of everything in the world that you could focus on? What is it that resonates with you about endangered species?
Well, for me, I love animals. I love all animals. And I ran across something about the pangolin, which I never heard the term. I didn't know what it was. So as I started looking at what is a pangolin and I also found out they were endangered. So that got me reading and reading and reading. And then sea turtle was the next thing that popped up for me. And it made me start thinking about all the animals that I love on a global basis. And the more reading I did, I was hooked. That's what started it. And then Suzi, you do a lot of things with the ocean and the sea. She does a lot of seascapes. And you started thinking about it, that the coral reefs are disappearing, right?
Oh, sure. But also, I worked for several years at the National Zoo in Washington, D.C., and my job there was to write about conservation efforts worldwide. The National Zoo teaches. They have a division that goes around the world and teaches wildlife managers how to protect the wildlife in their nations. And I would write about that, and then I wrote the members' newsletter and the fundraising things and so forth, and about the new exhibits. And so I was always interviewing keepers and curators, and, it was wonderful. So that certainly was, I was immersed into saving wildlife conservation efforts. But as Barbara said, I've always spent a lot of time at the sea, and boy, I'm so worried every time I see balloons on the beach and things like that are the marine animals think they look like big man-o-war jellyfish and they want to eat them, and then they smother. It's terrible. That I'm so glad New Jersey has just banned plastic bags and straws and things. It's so important. And then you look into it. I wanted to put a couple of other things into this show, and I pulled out some old paintings that I had from a decade ago or something, because they're from around here. Some of them are. And I was looking into research. We both had careers in marketing and PR, and we were always researching everything, both of us. So I discovered, we all know that the greenhouse gases, large percentage of that is unfortunately absorbed by the ocean, which is making it acidic. And seashells, I've been collecting seashells since I was a toddler, and seashells are basically calcium, and they are getting thinner, and this acid in the ocean is actually threatening to melt the shells. I thought, oh my God, what else can happen,
And they're not just decorative items, they're homes for
They are, of course
life.
they are. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, what's more beautiful than the things that are in the sea?
Did you find it difficult to narrow down or to decide which animals you were going to focus on?
I pick stuff I like.
Right, and at this point, I don't think that we've got enough pieces where we've had to worry about the size.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe at the small library down in Pine Beach, we would have to do that. But so far, we haven't run out of space. But when you showed me this article this morning and said the interest that's others have been showing, that you're not really like hitting people over the head with it, but the interest is there, that to me said, what we are doing, we need to keep doing, we need to expand it further, and we need to put all of our notes and our things. We've got our little brochure, but the brochure that's in the gallery right now doesn't include everything that we've done this year. Every year when we do the show, we try to at least add one new painting each. I know I've got 2 new ones this year, and I think you've got 2 new ones this year.
Yeah, I have new stuff, and I mean, I have things that are not necessarily new, but I haven't put them in the past.
Right.
You know.
Sometimes we put in one
Yeah.
new one and take one out. But I think that knowing that the interest for such an important global situation, really, that is really critical, is only going to make me look at things in a new way and see, okay, maybe we need to get more focused. It started out for me as fun. I love animals and I love to paint. And I did the pangolins first, and having no idea at all, I looked at the picture and I thought, well, aren't they cute? And that's what started it. But now I feel like it's really more important. So we've talked about other places we can contact. The Popcorn Zoo.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe try to see if we can help them help educate the public.
This is really a motivational display, isn't it? I mean, in the best of all scenarios, people are not just going to look at them and go, "Oh, what a shame! They're endangered." They're going to do something about it.
We hope so.
Well, I hope so. I mean, we're not scientists. We're artists. We're just, I mean, as far as wildlife knowledge is concerned, we're just average people. But I think everybody should be concerned about what's disappearing. I mean, we've lost how many millions of birds? It's all very frightening when you look into it.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some positive signs. That sort of entry thing that I did is just put together in case school children come through.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because that's a very thoughtful piece at the very beginning. I saw some of the comments on there, and even a little corner piece that says, "The news isn't all bad."
Yeah, and here's what you can do to help,
Mm-hmm.
it says.
And we had the monarch butterflies go off the list. I had monarch butterflies.
I think they should be
Couple of
on the
paintings.
list. There used to be clouds of them
There were
on
clouds,
LBI,
yes, as they migrated. Yes.
in the fall. And now you just see a few. But
Yes.
the goldenrod and the milkweed and things that attracted them, that they would stop for snacks and rest up. It was largely gone.
And of course, that's one of the motivational things. People need to understand what pesticides do
Oh
to
my gosh, yeah.
the bugs, which are the food for the birds. I live over in Berkeley Township, and we back up to a 2,000-acre nature preserve. So there is nothing back there but nature. And I have 9 birdhouses, I have 5 hummingbird feeders, I have countless sunflower seed feeders, and one broke the other day, so I scotch taped it back together, and my husband said, "Why don't you just buy a new one?" I thought, let's go. Because he's the one that's like, "Don't you think you have enough?" I'm like, there's never enough. Bird baths. So anything that we can do to invite the animals to a safe haven. That's what we as
Yeah.
normal human beings do.
You
And
have to-
stop with the pesticides. It really...
You have to empty the feeders, though, regularly if the birds don't do it, because there's another avian disease that had come over from Europe recently.
This is true. That's okay. That's not a
Nasty.
problem for me. I'm a clean freak, so...
Yeah. Your question about what to pick so the zebra, after, I thought, well, what'll I do? I just love puffins. I've always been a fan of puffins. I've never even seen one except in a zoo.
Mm-hmm.
But I love them. I just think and so it was fun to research them and learn about them. I mean, they're fascinating. They're little things, and they're solitary. They get together in these noisy mating groups in the spring, and then have their families, and they mate for life, unless they lose each other. Then after the breeding season is over, they lose that colored bill. That sort of melts away. They go back into the sea all by themselves. All by themselves. They spent the whole year in the ocean floating around alone with their with their black body. So if anything's flying over, it doesn't really see them because they blend in with the dark sea. And their white tummies, so anything looking up doesn't really see them because they blend into the sky above. They only dive down occasionally to get those little sardine things, the little eels that they eat. And they float around for, like 9 months of the year by themselves. And then they go back, and I was just fascinated by that.
Yes, and there was, when I was reading something just this morning of the top 10,
The top 10.
Most endangered.
Doomed for destruction.
Yeah, but when I got down to the end of what I was reading, they said the panda bear, which is so adorable, of course everybody loves it, so they'll pay attention to that when you say it's endangered, and tigers are beautiful and so on and so forth. They're not the only thing endangered. That bugs and cockroaches, and there are certain kinds of cockroaches and bugs, which, not a fan, but they said they're endangered too. So, especially children. Children love who knows what, everything from A to Z. And I thought, that's another thing to bring to the public eye, that bugs and critters and things that you don't necessarily think are beautiful, they're endangered too. If that sparks the interest of some little 6-year-old scientist to be, I think that's a good thing.
When I worked at the zoo, the head of the National Zoo at that time was Michael Robinson, who's one of the world's foremost tropical bug experts. He before coming to the zoo, he was at the Smithsonian's tropical facility in Panama. And he's also one of the world's experts on spiders. Remember that movie years ago? He was their expert advisor or whatever. Anyway, Mike Robinson told me one day that there were more beetles and small insects that have yet to be discovered than all of the animals and insects that have ever been discovered thus far in the world. There's so many more that we have never seen.
Right, so there's another world out there that there's still more to discover.
Tells me that cool. Take your bug spray when you go to Panama.
Well,
I mean, if there's, it's fascinating though.
Yeah, that doesn't necessarily translate though to, we're okay, there are more species coming.
No, it doesn't. And who knows how many of those have been lost that we don't even know about.
And the balance gets tipped when people do things like what's going on in Florida right now that I just found out about. You've got little chameleons down there. You've got other kinds of lizards. I'm not talking iguanas, just small lizards. But there's now an invasive species, and they're about 9 inches long. And when they run, their tail curls up like a scorpion. That's kind of how you can tell that it's this different lizard. They don't know for sure, but they think someone started out with a pet, like they've done in New York City with alligators in the sewer systems.
And pythons in the Everglades.
Yes. And so now they let this pet lizard go, and this lizard is becoming very invasive. I stood in a parking lot and saw 3 of them the first time I saw them. And they eat all the other lizards, and they're eating the bugs that the other lizards eat. So now you've got this sort of tipping point happening. I think there's an awareness to that. It's like, fine, if you have to, I don't think you can buy pet alligators anymore, but if you have to, and it outgrows your bathtub, take it to a zoo or call someone. Don't just throw it out. That's not a good thing, and people do this. And the snakes in the Everglades, that's a very bad situation down there.
I think you point out something that takes it even beyond. You're alluding to it within your display. It really points to the fact that what happens to all of these species can also happen to us.
For sure.
Yeah.
And it's not just part of that is the food chain, and part of that is what we generate and how we treat the environment and the ramifications of that. And basically, we don't see that we're working against our own ability to survive in the long run.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, all of life is codependent.
Miss Suzi says that all the time. I say, well, what about painting such and such? It's not on the list. Suzi says, paint it anyway. Everything's endangered. So I think next year we'll have a portrait of Tom in our in our show too. Hey, who's to say? We could.
What do you say to people who think that it's just alarmist and we don't really have anything to worry about? Because there are people who
Well, of course
have
there
no
are, but
stake in it.
yeah, and that's too bad. And those are the people that take their kids to the beach and let balloons fly in the air, not thinking that could be. I mean, that child, I'm sure, doesn't want to kill a seal, So, it's. I think there's more awareness now. My grandchildren, who are 4 and 9, I was babysitting during the day with them during spring break, and one of the games we played was their animal trivia game. And, these kids, I mean, even the 4-year-old, she got as many right answers as I did. They're aware. They're aware of the world around them. And there are a lot of people that complain about zoos. What a terrible thing to lock these poor creatures up. But the fact is, it makes people aware of what's happening. Zoos are places that propagate endangered species and release them again into the wild. And, they serve a lot of valuable, but it's certainly for city kids who never even see a cow. I mean, that's why the zoos even have like farm exhibits and so forth. So it's a wonderful thing that people are not going to go out of your way to care about something or protect something if you're not aware of it. When I worked at the zoo, the parking lot, I would go past the crown cranes and Barbara's cheetahs on my way to work every day. I just love those crown cranes. I mean, most animals exhibit wonderful dances and colorations and, feather rufflings and all kinds of great things during mating season. But a crown crane, which are tall things with like a little gold freight wig, they're just so funny looking. They're tall and they have this gold stuff that sticks up and they're very colorful faces. If it's a nice day, these guys will just get up and dance around for the pure joy of life. I just thought they were just so full of life and joie de vivre. I just loved them. I mean, they're personality creatures.
Are there any other pieces of the exhibit that you would like to point out? Things that might surprise people when they look at it? I mean, I was kind of surprised to see a lion up there.
Lions used to range all over Europe and Asia. And now they're stuck in protected national parks in the southern part of Africa. They used to be all over the place. They're not the most endangered creature, but they're not the way they used to be.
As the territories get encroached upon,
sure,
they get pushed out, and then they'll even eat their own young if they have to.
Will they?
Yes. I watch Blue Planet, and David Attenborough, he's good. He's really good. So I go on cruises and sit there and watch this on TV for like 90% of the cruise. I'm not a cruise person, but I love Blue Planet. So, yeah. So, the king of the jungle is getting less and less jungle to live in.
For sure.
As are many of these endangered creatures. That's how they, that's one of the reasons that they are going on the endangered list. So,
and they need a lot of territory. I mean, a pride of lions will have one male lion and a bunch of females, and then the young males, babies and the teenagers, and then they're eventually
they have
thrown
to go
out
and find their own niche.
And they need a big niche. I mean, an acre won't do it for them. They need a lot of territory. Pandas, which are, as Barbara said earlier, one of the most endangered species in the world, there's only a couple thousand of them left in the wild, and they're in one area of China. They are also solitary animals. They only get together during breeding season. Otherwise, they live by themselves eating bamboo, in this one little place in China. They wander over a long distance to find a mate. and then go back to their back 40 or wherever they are hanging out by themselves. And in China, they've broken it up with a highway or something, and some towns or something in the middle of what is the panda territory. So now this guy can't get to the girls because they're on the other side of that town. There's things like that people could change.
And a lot of times, as their territories get less and less and less, now they encroach any kind of large animal. Encroach on, say, farmland. And then the farmers come out, they just don't want to know. So they'll kill the animals because they don't want them eating their crops or attacking their cattle. So that's another thing, maybe not with the panda bear, but certainly with the lion and
with our own North American wolves.
Yeah, wolves.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, everywhere. I mean, the same situation occurs everywhere.
It's kind of, there is a vicious cycle, because I know out in the national parks, Yellowstone, they did a huge program to bring back the wolves out there. And then they got the wolves starting to be on the rebound, and they are still rebounding. But the next thing you know, there was some disease that struck cattle. And so these wolves that were going in and attacking cattle were now getting the disease and taking it back to their own. So there is a cycle that goes around, and they can spread the disease, like with us, with COVID, right?
Well,
you have situations like that with animals, and the closer they get in proximity to each other, where their habitats are, the more that occurs.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, but at the same time, if you get rid of the predators of an area, then you get the problem of other things taking over, like your lizard and like those Burmese pythons in the Everglades, and
it upsets the whole balance.
Yeah.
Still, with all the hardships, I can't help but sense that you still harbor some optimism that this can be turned around.
Oh, sure, absolutely. And there's a lot of stuff going on right here. The scallop trade is an important part of not only New Jersey's economy, but the national economy. That scallop fishery is very important, and it makes a lot of money. That's carefully protected and regulated to preserve that. And so it's flourishing here, and it only really occurs in the mid-Atlantic up to Maine. And I think that, as it says on our little sign about that, could serve as a model for other programs. There's a lot of positive signs. Remember, osprey and eagles were being killed off a couple of decades ago because DDT was being used, and it was weakening all the shelves, and so the new births weren't happening. So when they got rid of DDT, that has all come back. All we have to do is be aware. But
I think we could give a shout out to Reclaim the Bay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I was going to bring that point up. The two things, you're talking about scallops and you're talking about the birds. I'm a snowbird, so I spend my winters in Florida. And just those two subjects. They've got the Indian River down there and the Banana River, that I live right next to both of them. They've got a huge program going on with mussels, and they start the little seed mussels on ropes, because if they're on the bottom of the river, the fish eat them. But if they're suspended from ropes and they kind of hang down, the tendency is they leave them alone. So they've got this whole program. My neighbors are volunteers, and they go out there every weekend putting these ropes of mussels into the rivers. This is good because they're repopulating the mussels. The other thing is they filter and clean the water.
Sure.
So they've got this
Oysters,
whole
clams,
river cleanup thing going on. That's only one of the things that they're doing there. And it's working. It's working because my sister-in-law used to, don't go fishing over in the river. No. Now you see people fishing all over the place. So that's a good thing. Then with the ospreys, I know they do it here at Caddis Island Park and down in Florida. It's a huge thing. They're putting up hurricane-proof telephone poles, which are like twice the height of regular ones. And they build these platforms on the top of all of them, like in the water at Caddis Island, I'm sure you've seen them, for the ospreys to nest. And I'm telling you, as soon as they put them up, the birds start building nests. And with the rivers being cleaner, there's more fish, so there's more food for the ospreys and eagles. There's eagles down there too. And so, yeah, I can see it. I've only been a snowbird. This was my 6th winter, and I've seen the improvement. So there is lots of that going on across the country.
Reclam has done wonders in Barnegat Bay, which was headed down a dead end with algae and
yeah, it's really
algae.
helped clean it up.
jellyfish. And, it's revitalized the ecosystem down under.
Your husband Bill will be sorry to hear this, but when he's a big cruise fan, but they during COVID, they in Venice, Italy, they kept all of the cruise ships away because you couldn't get in anyway. Nobody was taking cruises then, and dolphins came back. The waters cleared up, and it was suddenly it was the Mediterranean again, with the Adriatic up there. But there was clear, beautiful turquoise water once again instead of being dark and murky and God knows what's down there in the water. Well. Yeah, no, all we have to do is nature will take care of itself if we stop polluting it.
And the cruise ships are actually changing their fuel. I don't know what it is on the older ships, but they're changing it to like a propane thing, which of course in my mind is like, oh, one lit match there, we're all going up. But that's another story. But less pollutants. They are conscious of that. And so they're doing a lot of stuff. But you're right, he's the cruise fan, not me. So.
And we are here in Ocean County, and the people who are going to view your exhibit and who have seen your paintings in the past live smack between the Pinelands and the beach, and maybe are in arguably the best position to understand the ecology and the environment and the risks of endangerment than maybe anywhere else in the country, all at the same time from both ends. So if there's one message that you would like them to come away with from viewing your exhibit, what would that be?
Oh, just have an appreciation for the beauty and wonders of the wide world around us, wherever we are. Certainly here, as you say, it's such a rich environment. It's just wonderful. And how could you not appreciate nature by living here and want to protect it?
And I think if you've got any interest, whether it's birds or beasts, also be aware that there are a lot of organizations that feature the different, anything you're interested in. And you can find a chapter locally. And for young children, get them involved and open your eyes, and you will see things you didn't even know were right in your own backyard.
Oh, absolutely. Well, as you said, Reclaim the Bay, Alliance for a Living Ocean here in
Sierra
Ocean
Club.
County, and the Sierra Club, and they all have programs for kids all summer long, and there's so
beautiful places to go and watch the birds. What the name of the place down by Smithville?
Well, this whole, we're in Southern Ocean County. All of the land around us really is part of the Barnegat Bay estuary system. Which is largely part of the Edwin Forsyth National Wildlife Refuge. Oh, what a richness of, I go down there all the time. I was down there with another friend, Margaret, a year or two ago, and another artist friend from Pine Shores, and we were taking the 8-mile drive around the Edwin Forsyth Nature Center. It's a wonderful thing. It's 15 miles an hour, and you can stop wherever and see all of the fabulous migrating things that are coming through. And there was a guy standing on the side with one of those gigantic cameras with huge lens, the lens is 2 feet across or something. So we couldn't see what he was focusing on. So we got out of the car to ask him, what did he see? And he was looking at an eagle's nest or something often. And he had a heavy northern British accent. And he was indeed from Yorkshire. So, I asked her, I said, well, how did you come to be here? He said, are you kidding? He said, this is one of the top birding places on the globe. Everybody comes here.
Who knew? He did.
Yeah, no, right here in Southern Ocean. Well, that's in Atlantic County, but it's just below Ocean County. It's in Galloway, Oceanville. There and Cape May are two of the main birding destinations in the world. Yeah. And they're all, all this wonderful stuff is right here for us. We're lucky.
Any closing comments for your listeners?
I'd like to say that as far as Pine Shore, where you started out talking about Pine Shore, that's even another way to get involved with species. There's great new programs for children, and they're adding more and more of them all the time, and they're just wonderful. They've got a plein air program that goes all over Ocean County, and when you're out there, you never know what you're going to see. And I was out in my backyard, speaking of lizards, last year or the year before, I saw this lizard in my yard, about this big, had no idea. It's called a pine lizard, and it is unique to the pine barrens. The other day I went out to clean up the garden, and sure enough, there was another one out there. I had no idea. The only lizards I ever knew of were salamanders. I grew up on Staten Island, New York, when it was all woods and salamanders. But there's lizards out here. So if you like art, join Pine Shore and get out with all these artists that go all over the place. You'll learn of places you never knew existed. I know I have. And you'll be in nature. And then nature will put on a display for you that you might not have expected.
And that's another good way to get involved.
It is indeed. And we're growing. We just signed a lease for a building in Tuckerton where we can have additional classes and art festivals and all kinds of things.
It's good to know you're growing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Indeed. And we're very appreciative of the wonderful support we get from the library system here. It's great.
You've been listening to Barbara Kraemer and Suzi Hoffman of the Pine Shores Art Association in Manahawkin, whose art exhibit entitled Endangered Species resides throughout May 2022 at the Ocean County Library Toms River Branch. Learn more about the Manahawkin-based art group at pineshoresartassociation.org. Catch up on library programs and events at the oceancountylibrary.org. Keep listening, keep reading, and keep growing.